Hey, everybody. Hey, Keith, how are you today?
I'm living the dream. Yourself?
Likewise, jumping from talk to talk to talk. Um, Anyways, for everybody here in the room, and as we go ahead and get started, Keith here is CISA's Veteran Employment Program Manager. So he works with veteran outreach to support the agency's mission at CISA. Over 20 years of experience in the military and federal government, multiple certs in cybersecurity and in human resources. And Keith and I connected just a short time ago and invited him over to chat about CISA's mission and what they do and how he can help give our talk to VetSecCon and help veterans with their transition. So with that, Keith, I'll leave it over to you to give your presentation. And thank you so much again for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. My pleasure to be here. So yeah, I'll just jump right in, I guess. So yeah, my name's Keith, as he mentioned. I am an Army veteran, 22 years and some change. Retired about 4 years ago. So all that to say, I'm not a cyber guy by trade. When I got out of the Army, I kind of reinvented myself as a HR person. I had a pretty strong security background and stuff, but thought I was going to go law enforcement. And all that to say, VA process, if you will, kind of some things were found, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you're not medically qualified to be a police officer." So I had to, reinvent myself. That freaked me out. My transition was quite tumultuous. A lot of the gray in this beard, I think, is a testament to that. But all that to say, when I, went the HR route, I found very meaningful employment. I love the field that I'm in. So you're like, well, wait a second, why is an HR guy giving us a brief on cybersecurity? Well, so I joined CISA almost 2 years ago. Actually, I'm actually just a few weeks away from my 2-year anniversary. And when I was initially brought over to CISA, I was brought over in administrative purpose, right? Administrative side to HR, but I was supporting a penetration testing team. And my boss there at the time, he basically, was like, you're not a cyber guy. We get that, but you need to learn the language. You need to learn what we do, that kind of thing. So he started sending me to all kinds of training. So yeah, I got my certified ethical hacker. I got Security Plus. I got Linux Plus, which that one was the most painful. And I learned a lot of the language. But the cool thing too is CISA is more than just cyber, right? A lot of folks see the first half of our name and hone in on that, which cyber is absolutely a large part of, or probably the largest part of what we do. But we actually are charged with safeguarding all of our nation's critical infrastructure. So you got to keep in mind things like our power grids, our water supplies, our dams, our nuclear power sites, all those kinds of things, right? So we have a very large physical security side of the house, but I get that SecCon, we're probably almost all on the cyber side, so I get that. But a lot of what I'm talking about, I'm bringing up because a lot of you are I shouldn't say a lot, but I'm assuming at least some of you are probably pivoting into cyber, which I totally get, right? I had to reinvent myself when on my way out the door as well. So I'm going to kind of talk about not only just CISA's mission and what we do, but also even get into the federal application process, especially for some of us that might be, pivoting into a new industry. I often get the question of the old adage of what's most important: experience, education, or certifications or training, however you want to refer to that, right? And I usually answer it with a question of my own: what do you have time for, right? So a lot of folks, especially those of you that maybe are still in uniform and on your way into transitioning, you don't necessarily have time to go get that 4-year degree, but it's still important, right? So, but if you don't have time for that, well, what do you have time for, right? Experience, that's, it takes about a year or two, right, to get that experience. And then the certification piece, right? You, especially in the cyber industry, y'all can go get that a whole lot quicker. So if you've got time to get the 4-year degree, go get the 4-year degree. That's absolutely important, as is the other two, right? They're all pretty much equally as important. But if you don't have time for that, if you don't have time for the experience, then go get yourself some certifications. Start building your skill set that way. Then start working on the next thing, the next longer thing, which is basically your experience, right? Especially, I'm not overly familiar with all areas of cyber, but I was heavily submerged in the penetration testing field. So, I tell folks if they're looking to go to that, we'll start participating in Capture the Flags. Hack the Box has got one actually going on right now. And I think the competition is this weekend, but Capture the Flags, bug bounties, all these things that you can do kind of on your own to get that real world experience that, you may not be able to get normally if you're not actively working in the field. But even things, like Hack the Box, which, by the way, CISA doesn't necessarily endorse some of the resources I'm presenting today. So in fact, they don't technically endorse any of them probably that I'm presenting, but my heart is veteran mentorship in addition to just, working for my agency. So, I may share some resources today that are not CISA endorsed, not CISA created, but the agency doesn't endorse them in any way, but they're still valuable, and I'm happy to share them. Is more of a mentor side of the house. But all that to say, there's plenty of ways like Hack the Box, where you can get, keyboard warrior time and sort of thing, or even volunteer work. I was mentoring one person, they were trying to pivot more into the IT field, even it's like hardware-esque, but I was like, well, shoot, one great way is volunteer work, and they did. They were like helping like local churches build their network and get a better computer infrastructure, both hardware and software and networking wise. So just think outside the box. How maybe you can get some of those real world keyboard warrior time experiences, and then of course the education piece, right? So a lot of jobs may require an education of some sort in IT or cyber. And so, yeah, the ability to go back, because usually if you can get that experience under your fingers and get a couple certifications under your fingers, you got a good shot at least getting your foot in the door in a quote unquote entry level job. And then once your foot is in the door somewhere, then yeah, start working on that 4-year degree, and work towards that formal education piece. So, with that said, I'm trying to think if there's much else I really want to discuss CISA wise per se. I've kind of talked about the mission. So let me just kind of maybe talk about what I do, and then we'll get into dive down more into federal resumes and stuff like that. So my role is the Veterans Program Manager. So as I mentioned, initially I was brought onto the agency to basically, if I got any Army folks out there, I was the S1, S3, and S4 for a penetration testing team. So I did all their admin, operations, training, and procurements and supply and all that. Well, I have to say, after a little over a year and a half doing that role, the Veterans Program Manager for CISA found a better opportunity and moved on elsewhere. And I had actually befriended this person and actually started working with the team. I was volunteering to go to hiring events and stuff like that because, again, for the 4 years I've been out of the Army, I've been pretty much mentoring that whole time in a volunteer status. So, and I had a heart for veterans. So when my predecessor vacated the position, they seemed to think that I'd be a good fit for the new role. So yeah, just over 2 months ago, I became the Veterans Program Manager. So yeah, I love it, and my heart is for veterans. So my job, I feel, is twofold in what I do. So my first is the externally facing part of my role, which is stuff like this, right? Bringing the CISA mission and vision to the veteran community. And CISA is a very veteran-friendly organization. We are 40% veteran staff currently. My goal is to get us up over 50 because right now we are the second most veteran staffed agency in the DHS umbrella, which we also fall under DHS. FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, they're first place, and my goal is to beat them. I want to be the #1 veteran staffed agency, and at least within the DHS umbrella. But I'd venture to say we're pretty high up there across the entire federal government. 40% is pretty high. So yeah, outward facing, bringing the CISA vision and message, and in that, recruiting, right? Getting people interested in the agency. I am not technically a recruiter. I am a program manager, but I work very closely with the recruiters and occasionally dabble in recruiting. In fact, I have a position that I am actively recruiting for right now. So I'll talk about it right now. Why not? And if somebody would like, I can post it into the chat. But you can also go to my LinkedIn page because that's essentially where I put it. So it's kind of a dual-hatted role, but the role title is data scientist or data science with a system engineering background. So if that falls into your realm at all, and you are willing to relocate, if you're not already in Arlington, Virginia, it is a GS 711, or sorry, it's not 7, GS 91112 ladder, which again, might go a little bit more in depth into the ladders piece, but essentially that means you can be brought on as low as a GS9, but it has promotion and capability all the way up to 12. But that doesn't mean you're going to be brought on as a GS9. If your experience speaks to it, you can actually be brought on right as a GS12 right out the gate. It is telework eligible. But again, you have to be in the Arlington area because they didn't say how much time you'll be in the office. Generally speaking, I'm thinking probably once a week or once every pay period at least. But yeah, it's telework eligible. Relocation expenses are negotiable. So if you don't live in the Arlington area and you want to apply, but you're willing to relocate to Arlington, it is entirely possible that you can get reimbursed for your relocation. The hiring manager is willing to work with the selectee for that purpose of getting reimbursed. I'm trying to think. So go to my LinkedIn page. My name is, as you all know, Keith Cassant. I'm the only Keith Cassant in the entire world, so it's really hard to lay low on social media. So if you search my name on LinkedIn, you're guaranteed to find my page. And on there, like I said, I just posted it yesterday, so you don't have to dig very far. There's instructions. There's a job description. Please tailor your resume to that job description, and then there's an instructions on how to apply. The one thing I'll say, and again, we might get it. We're probably going to get into this. The importance of tailoring your resumes. Okay, your resume must speak to that job description as much as possible. So I'm gonna leave that there for now because I'm probably going to go way more in depth into the importance of tailoring your resumes, especially for federal jobs. So just know you got a data science background. Or data science experience with a system engineer's background or side job kind of thing, please check that out if you're interested in federal employment. Okay, so I was talking about external facing, right? Outward, I'm not a recruiter by trade or by design or even on paper. I'm a program manager, but I do work very closely with the recruiting folks, and again, occasionally recruit with them. And then internally facing, I feel my role is to one, advocate for the veterans. So I am regularly trying to meet with hiring managers to get them to understand the importance of hiring a veteran and the value that veterans bring to the table. And not only that, but some of the advantages of hiring veterans. So again, I keep alluding to the stuff I'm going to be talking about later, but there are special hiring authorities that you may have heard about or know about that we can leverage, or a hiring manager can leverage to bring somebody on. We've all heard the horror stories of 6 to 8 month processes, right, to get hired. You get referred if you're lucky, and then you never hear anything again. And you never, 3 years later. I mean, I've got job applications from like 4 years ago that are still just sitting on referred status on USA Jobs. The cool thing about what we can do for veterans is leverage special hiring authorities where we can significantly cut that down. So that can be enticing for a hiring manager, especially if they have a critical fill or a role that they're trying to fill sooner rather than later, and they don't want to wait the 6 to 8 months. If they're willing to hire a veteran in a certain capacity, we can usually cut that down to like 1 to 2 months, which is a significantly faster process. So part of my role is that, right? The advantages of hiring veterans as well as the value of hiring veterans. And then also just helping the veterans in the agency. So I run a veterans program, if you will. Like we have a Teams channel. We try to organize events, and things like that. And then just helping veterans, with onboarding. Like if you're a veteran, when you come into the federal government as an employee, as a civilian, a federal civilian, there's certain perks sometimes that you may qualify for. So I help veterans understand that, and even help advocate for them, because sometimes they don't, paperwork gets screwed up or something, and they don't get those benefits right out the gate like maybe they should. So in a nutshell, that's my job. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else pertaining to CISA. So CISA in a nutshell, what I will say is, and I can't remember if I already mentioned, so we are charged with safeguarding or strengthening the nation's critical infrastructure. However, we don't own that critical infrastructure, right? We as CISA, we are not, for an instance, outside of the cyber field, but somewhat related because it's communications. We have a division for emergency communications, and they are responsible for the security essentially of our 911 systems and things like that, or police radio comms and things like that. 9/11 was a big proponent of what pushed that for our role in that part of the field, because as some of us were around to remember, when 9/11 happened, a lot of phone systems got clogged up and went down and stuff like that. So, working, how can we prevent that from happening ever again, should, God forbid, there be another disaster at that magnitude. But again, we don't own those 911 systems, right? So CISA as a whole is very advisory in nature, right? We go out and we, find the vulnerabilities within these infrastructures, and we work with the local owners of those municipalities or whoever owns that network or that location to help them strengthen that, right? So we don't necessarily have an offensive arm. to us. Even on the cyber side, we have a threat hunting subdivision, and they are secret squirrel and do a lot of cool stuff, but they're not actively they're not offensive operations, right? We have an incident response team within there. And should something happen, they react, they respond. They're a part of that first responder type team. And then they maybe work with other agencies that may work more on the offensive side. But we are not offensive in nature. We don't have a law enforcement arm or anything like that. We are, again, advisory, mostly policy driven, or policy creation and best techniques and practices and things like that. We have a penetration testing team or a team of assessors that travel the country. So if you, again, maybe you're interested in the penetration testing realm, so this is great. Especially if you like travel, that was the team I was supporting. They travel all over the country, even to our territories. When I was there, we sent a team to Guam for quite a while to do some testing out there. We sent a team out to Puerto Rico. So really cool stuff, great opportunities. So in a nutshell, again, that's kind of who CISA is and who I am. Trying to read this. I don't know if that message was for me. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So I guess for now, and if you have any questions, feel free to toss them into the chat. I will try to leave some time at the end for a Q&A. I was told I have 45 minutes. I've already burnt 15 minutes of that. So I'll go probably at least another 15 minutes and try to leave a whole third if we can for Q&A. And if not, I'll just keep talking at you. But hopefully you're finding value in this. So federal jobs, right? And so what I'm going to kind of talk about is some of it may be somewhat CISA specific, but a large part of it will be across the board, if you will. So I talked about tailoring resumes before, right? So let me give you a quick example of what may happen if you apply for a federal job, because a lot of us will, apply for jobs and, I've submitted, 150 federal resumes and I've never gotten a referral or anything like that for an interview. Chances are you're probably not getting past what we call the qual process, right? So let me give you a scenario. You apply for a job, CISA or any agency, as far as I understand it. But right, you apply for the job, the hiring manager loves you, right? They interview you. You are by and large, hands down, the best applicant. Second place doesn't even come close. They want you, right? Well, what has to happen once they select you is the resume has to move over to the HR side of the house for what we call a qual, which is just short for qualification, but a qual process, right? And what they're going to do, the HR folks, is they're going to take your resume and they're going to take the job description from USA Jobs and they're going to pair the two together, right? Well, when they do that, your resume has to speak for itself. It has to stand up against that job announcement. On paper, it has to show that you know how to do that job, right? And so it's absolutely critical, because if you didn't do that, if you didn't tailor your resume to speak to that job announcement pretty much word for word as much as possible, then you get disqualified. HR disqualifies you. And guess what? That hiring manager can't touch you. It doesn't matter how badly they want you. When you get disqualified, if I'm not mistaken, it's a 90-day disqualification. So if they were to wait for you, they'd have to wait 90 days for you to try again. But most hiring managers aren't going to do that. We got to get these roles filled now, right? And it's already a 6 to 8 month process through USA Jobs most of the time. So they're not going to wait yet another 90 days kind of thing. So they're going to go to number 2, right? They're going to move on to the next person. All that to say, more often than not, the hiring managers already know this. They already know this process. So if you're not getting referrals for interviews and you feel like you were a dead ringer for that job, you probably didn't tailor your resume to that job description strongly enough, because the hiring managers know about the qual process. So when they look at a resume, if they know that it's not going to pass the qual process, they're not going to invite you for they're not going to select you for an interview, and you might be like, well, I was the best candidate for the job. Yeah, but fair hiring practices also prevent us from coming back to you and being like, hey, we really like you, but we need you to rewrite your resume. We can't do that, right? Once you've applied for the job, we can't provide any sort of feedback like that. So it's absolutely critical that you make sure your resume speaks to that job description. That's why these federal resumes tend to be more than 2 pages, right? Civilian style is 2 pages, federal style is more. All right. So because I get it, USA Jobs, the announcements are 1.5 miles long. So you can't fit all that on 2 pages and still hit all those points or all the bullets and buzzwords and key phrases and to pass the qual process. So what my advice for that is, less is still more. Okay. And what I mean by that is, you need to you make your resume as long as it needs to be for you to hit as much of that, talk about as much of that job description as possible so that it shows that you're qualified. But yeah, I received a 40-page resume one time. They didn't get selected for an interview, right? And they wanted feedback. Well, why didn't I get selected? And I'm like, 40 pages. I don't think I should say any more than that, or should I need to say more? Because here's the thing. I just read a statistic a little over a month ago now. There was a big study done. The average career-worthy job gets 120 applications. Okay. And you got to realize the average recruiter is probably juggling 5 to 10 jobs. So 5 to 10 jobs at 120 applications a piece. And oh yeah, the hiring managers say, oh, I only want to see the top 10. These recruiters are trying to, as quickly as possible, sift through a whole lot of stuff in a very short amount of time. So you got to understand that, less is still more, even in the federal system. I tell folks 8 pages ish is a great, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a good length, right? If you go to 9, okay, try to stay out of the double digits, but 6 to 8 pages, that should be enough space for you to hit all the buzzwords, all the bullets, all the keywords, right? Now, I've seen people do this too. Okay, well, I got to hit all the buzzwords, key phrases, and all that stuff and bullets. So I'm just going to copy and paste word for word out of the job description into my resume, right? That'll get me an interview, surely. Okay, you need to take it a step further. You're on the right path. Okay, you need to take it a step further though. So, as a hiring man, so I've got 6 years of hiring manager experience under my belt. Pardon me. I got take a quick sip. And so, I think from experience, but now that I'm in more in the recruiting space and I'm working with hiring managers, I know that I'm not alone in what I'm about to tell you. So, you can take a bullet from a job announcement and copy and paste it into your resume, right? And maybe that bullet that talked about that part of the job, maybe you really do have that skill set, but just copying and pasting it over doesn't prove that to me. Even if you don't copy and paste it over, sometimes your bullets don't tell me anything. And so here's what I'm getting at, especially because your resume generally lives and dies in your bullets, because that's where your experiences are going to be listed more often than not. Well, here's some insight from a hiring manager's brain. I don't care what you did. I don't care. Like, I don't hire you for what you did. Okay. What I hire you for is the results that action produced. For an example, especially military folks, we can appreciate leadership, right? We a whole lot of leadership experience when we come out of the military. So you can have a bullet that says, I was Army, so I'll use a little bit of Army, platoon sergeant in charge of the care and welfare for 75 soldiers. That's great. That tells me nothing. Okay. Because I don't know the outcome. And I'm hiring you for the outcome. Case in point, what if you were a toxic leader? All right. What if your leadership style was so toxic that of those 75 people, 5 of them got DWIs because they were drinking on the job because they hated their jobs under your leadership? Or 2 of them got arrested for domestic violence because they were bringing work stressors home with them and beating their spouses at home, right? I don't want that toxicity in my organization, but that's the results that your action produced, right? Now, granted, I'm going to an extreme here, but if you don't tell me what that result was, if you don't tell me what was produced by those actions, I don't know. So telling me what you did means nothing if I can't know, or you don't tell me what the outcome of that action was. That is critical. Okay. So copying and pasting bullets out of a job description onto your resume with no results whatsoever still doesn't help you. You got to take that next step. You got to speak to that job announcement. That's great. But then, if that role says you're going to be a manager and a leader of soldier, or not soldier, but a people, say I was a platoon, I wouldn't say platoon sergeant because we want a civilian to file a resume, but manager or senior manager of 75 employees, comma, recognized as the best company in the battalion, 750 to 1,000 people, right? So recognized as the best platoon, but best team within a 1,000-person organization, because maybe your platoon was recognized as the best platoon in some competition for the battalion, kind of thing. But all that to say, hopefully you see what I'm getting at, right? So, tell me what the outcome of each and every action was. If you don't give me an outcome, it doesn't need to be a bullet, okay? It's just taking up space on your resume. It's fluff, right? Now, I'm going to tell you to take it yet a step further, because that result, that second half of that bullet, because you got to tell me what you did. I got to know that, right? But you got to tell me what the outcome was. Now, take it a step further. In that outcome, make it measurable. Give me a way to measure the outcome. Basically, a number most of the time, more often than not, right? Because I need to know how impactful that result was, how impactful the outcome was. Because you can tell me that you increase the proficiency or the efficiency of a process in an organization by 1%. Okay, is that really impressive? But you tell me that you increase the efficiency of a process by 35% and save the organization $5,000 a month. Now I'm impressed. Now I'm listening. So give me the result and give me a way to measure that result. Really give me a way to measure the action as well. Don't just say you were in charge of a team of people, right? Tell me how many people were on that team. And then again, give me that result and make it quantifiable, make it measurable. 9 times out of 10, that measurement is going to be a number. It's going to be a dollar amount. It's going to be a time. It's going to be, one of those things. The other 1 out of 10 times that something's measurable is recognition. And I actually use that in my example, right? It recognizes the best team within the 1,000-person organization, because you're not going to say battalion, because even people on this call don't know how big a battalion is half the time. So give me the size of the organization. But all that to say, recognition is absolutely tangible. It is measurable, and it can be used as quantification or qualification or measurement of a result. Well, actually, in that case, the result, the recognition would be the result, and then you tell me why you were recognized. I don't need to know that you got an award, right? I don't need to know that you got a challenge coin. Leave out how you were recognized. Just tell me that you were recognized. Maybe tell me who you were recognized by. If they were somebody important, again, leave out their name because I'm not going to know it. But give me their job title or something like that. All right, kind of beating that to death, and I do want to leave time for Q&A, and I kind of got a little behind the power curve at this point. So for my agency, I am going to speak back to my agency now. We do leverage USA Jobs for 99% of all of our job openings, maybe 97%. So I'm not going to beat USA Jobs to death any more than I already have. However, we actually have 2 other hiring pathways, and I do want to go over those. So the first one, and now I'm going to try to share my screen. Share screen. Oh boy, of course it's going to, hopefully. All right. Okay, that worked. Now if I change tabs, of course, okay, it doesn't change tabs with me. All right, well, that's USA Jobs proper, so we don't need to see that. Let me, sorry, I apologize. Let me try to reshare. Here we go. That's what I want to share. All right, so USA Jobs proper, right? It's the site we all love to hate. However, DHS, about a year and some change ago, created what they call the DHS cybersecurity service. You sometimes might hear it referred to as CTMS, which stands for Cyber Talent Management System. They're basically interchangeable, CTMS or DHS Cyber Service. What it is DHS realized that we can't compete with the likes of Microsoft and Google and Amazon and all of them as far as pay goes. So what we're doing, or what DHS did, is they're ditching the GS pay scale, all right? And they're going to these pay bands. So if I click on here, will that change on the site? Yes. So there are 5 pay bands. Let me zoom out a little bit so it'll fit on one screen, hopefully. Why is it not? There we go. So we have 5 pay bands. We call them tracks. So entry, developmental, technical, leadership, and executive. Okay, and if you look at the right-hand side, 3 of our 5 are pushing upwards or just north of $200,000 a year. GS-15s don't make $200,000 a year. So as you can see, this is a significant increase in pay scales. Okay, you're still a federal employee. You get all the same benefits and working towards that great pension and all that good stuff. You're just getting paid possibly a substantially higher salary. These tracks, as you can see, entry, developmental, technical, leadership, executive. I'm not gonna lie, I shouldn't say never, well, I haven't, but I have yet to see an entry-level track ever post on this site. But have faith, they're coming. I actually talked to some program managers over at the DHS cybersecurity side of the house, and they said they will have a bunch that they're looking to post early next year, springtime. So if you are in more of that entry-level zone, definitely continue to check out this site, because one might pop up before that. But definitely early next year, especially springtime, you should hopefully be seeing a lot more entry-level roles popping up. All that to say, entry level, that's 1 to 2 or 3 years of experience. Developmental track is like 2 to 5 years of experience, and this isn't mandatory. You don't have to have that much experience, but these roles are going to generally fit that level of experience, right? Technical track is 5 to 15 years worth of experience, and actually, as is leadership and executive, they're all like they say they're 5 to 15 years of experience. The other thing I want to mention for these is, for most, not all, especially entry-level track, they will not fall into this category, but most, from the developmental through executive, most of all of these applications will have an exam involved. right? That's how we're pre-screening. That's where we're getting rid of some of these human eyes, the whole qual process, all that good stuff. We're still tailor your resume. Don't play with fire with that one. But that the exam is going to be the primary way that we're pre-screening you, because if you pass the exam, you probably got the skills necessary for the job. So you know, so what happens is you actually, when you click on a job application, which I'll click over to that tab here in a second, but when you go to apply, you're going to upload your resume and all this stuff ahead of time, but then it's just going to sit there and it's going to take you to the exams. Some of these exams are proctored. You might have to go to a testing center to take, because some of these, there's like 2 exams and the second one sometimes proctored. All that to say, you have to pass the exam or exams in order for your resume to move on to the hiring managers, okay? So that's critical, okay? Just be mindful of that. And I said hiring managers for a reason. So let's jump over to the apply tab. So if you click on apply, and you can, again, actually, I think I can put it in the chat. I just realized. Hopefully y'all can see that. So that's a link to the apply tab for the DHS cybersecurity service. So when you come over here, right, you're going to see the role. Sometimes you're going to see the track in the role title, okay? If you don't see it in the role title, which all these have it in the role title, so never mind. But they don't always have it in the role title. But if it's not in the role title, in that one of those first gray boxes, it's going to tell you what track it's in. The 01, I have no idea what that is. I asked the DHS cybersecurity program managers, and they didn't know what the 0 was either. They said they get back to me. We haven't done that yet. So, but that second tab, at least, will tell you what track it's in. Okay, then you're going to see a bunch of other gray boxes, and you're going to see a bunch of familiar things, probably OCIO, CISA, FEMA, policy. Okay, so this is a DHS program, meaning anyone within the DHS umbrella, any agency that falls under DHS will get to leverage this program. So CISA isn't the only one hiring for these positions, right? As you can see, OCIO, FEMA, and the policy agency for DHS, they're all hiring for that position. So theoretically, you apply for like the data science role, you know, if you pass the exams and everything, your resume moves on to all the hiring managers for that role. So you could, in theory, be contacted for that particular role from 4 different hiring managers, maybe even get offered 4 different jobs down the road. Okay, so that's kind of the cool thing about this too. It's just a one-stop shop. So significantly higher pay bands, one-stop shop. And we're pre-screening you through the exams. So if you pass the exams, you know that you've been moved on to the hiring manager. So all that to say, the NatSec, I'll just throw out, that's not NSA. That just means the role is national security related. You know, we don't work with, well, we work with the NSA, but you know, they're their own thing, and we don't. It's not an NSA job. I don't know how else to say that. All right. The last thing I want to bring up is, I guess I got to stop sharing my screen because if I change tabs, it won't happen. So the DHS Cybersecurity Service is the second hiring pathway that we leverage at CISA, and I absolutely encourage you to check that out. The last pathway that I want to bring up is veteran specific, because I mentioned very earlier on, right? We have special hiring authorities that we can leverage in the federal government to bring you on in a much faster time, nonetheless. So you may be familiar with them. I'll do a quick overview of them. So the 2 primary ones that at least we leverage is VRA, which I can't remember what it stands for, but VRA, you qualify for the VRA hiring authority if you have separated in the last 3 years, or if you have any disability rating from the VA whatsoever, or if you have a campaign ribbon, or basically if you deployed at some point in your career. And I'm kind of giving I'm oversimplifying it. There's a little bit more to that, but essentially those are the 3 categories. If any of those 3 apply to you, you qualify for VRA, that hiring authority. So there's that. And then there's the 30% or more VA disability hiring authority. So this one is what's called a non-competitive, and we get to break a lot of the rules. So if a hiring manager wants to leverage that hiring authority, if you have 30% or more VA disability, we can bring you on a whole lot faster than the usual process, and hiring managers love it for that reason. The reason I'm about to share my screen again is because, at least for CISA, I can't speak for all the agencies, but for CISA, whenever we're leveraging that hiring authority, we're not even going to put it on USA Jobs. We're not going to bother with it, because that defeats the purpose a lot of times of why we're leveraging that hiring authority. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it on LinkedIn. That's the primary place. We also have some other sourcing tools that we use, but publicly facing, that's the one source we use for the public facing. So The reason I'm sharing this young lady's LinkedIn page is because she is our social media recruiter. Again, I am not a recruiter by trade. I am a program manager by trade in this agency, but I do work closely with Sasha. But 99% of the time, if we are leveraging either of those hiring authorities, she will be the one to post it on her LinkedIn. So I implore you, if you fall into either of those categories for those hiring authorities, go to her page. I'll drop her URL in the chat, although you can search her by name as well. Go to her page and click on that little bell in the right hand corner so you get alerted any and every time she posts, because she'll post other stuff, but a lot of times she's posting for a specific job announcement. All right, do the same thing for my page. So I'll quickly jump over to my LinkedIn because once in a blue moon they give me something to recruit for instead of her. Case in point, just yesterday, that I already talked about, the data science job, right? So if you go to my LinkedIn page, close out the chat. You don't need to see who's messaging me. So yesterday, I posted this job announcement for that data science job. So again, make sure you're tailoring, because we still need you to speak to that job announcement, all right? And give me results. Don't just copy and paste these bullets if you're going to apply for this job. Give me results, quantified results for each of these bullets. It's absolutely imperative. But all that to say, I'm actually specifically recruiting for this one. You must be 30% or more VA disability. The VRA isn't being applied for this particular job opening. So yeah, the details are there. Like I said before, you do not have to have a TSSCI. You just need to be able to attain it. The hiring manager is not requiring that as a prerequisite. But yeah, you will be put in for a TSSCI should you be selected for the position. And I hit all the other points. But yeah, check that out. And I apologize for my dog barking. The joys of being 100% remote. I get to work from home and my dogs get to disrupt. So let me think. There was something else I was going to say about that. Let me go back here. So, but yeah, check out the other page, because there are a lot of roles that are actually still open right now that she's recruiting for. So, and they're not all cyber related either. So just keep that in mind as well. We do leverage SkillBridge. That's something I didn't mention before. So it made me think of it when I clicked on my profile. So I actually just posted a SkillBridge opportunity this morning. So if you are still in uniform per chance and you're looking for a SkillBridge opportunity, check us out. We don't have a lot of opportunities open right now, but I am hoping to change that. I am actively working to quote unquote redeploy SkillBridge across the entire agency because yeah, we're not taking full advantage of it. And I think once my redeployment happens across the agency, we're going to have a huge influx of SkillBridge opportunities. All right, with that said, we got about 8 minutes or so, if I'm not mistaken, left. So I said I'd try to leave time for Q&A. So I will be quiet at this point and stop sharing my screen and ask if anybody has any questions. I think I saw one in the chat. So let me, Bo was trying to suss out if there's any way for employees to seek jobs. Appreciate the tip on making sure job seekers having their fun. There are better ways for job seekers to seek out potential employers. Steve, was that question for me? I'm not familiar with this because I think it looks like there's some chats happening from other rooms and stuff. I don't know if there's something else going on. Is there anybody out there? I'm not familiar with this platform. Also see, is this somebody raising their hand? Oh, there's a session chat. Oh, there's a whole nother tab. I do apologize. Look at that. Now I'm on the right chat. All right. So, well, you're welcome, Fabio. So now that I know I'm in the right chat, yeah, you and me both, Sonny. So it's all good. We're learning together, and it's not to knock the VetSec folks. They just, yeah, I've never used this program or this platform before, so learning as I go. But all that to say, does anybody have any questions? You can type in the chat. I don't know if if you all are able to come off mute and ask. I see an alert from you, Sonny, but in the moderation tab, but I don't know what that means. If that's, I don't look at, have an extra red X, I can exit out. But that was an accident. Okay, gotcha. All right. Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So I guess if nobody's got a question, let me think. I'm sure there's some other stuff I can just educate you folks on. Oh, So you know what? I do have a couple other resources. So I don't know where everybody is in their journey. If you're already knee deep in cyber, if you're kind of pivoting in and still new. But again, CISA doesn't endorse this site, but this is a phenomenal site. It's, let me pull it up, share my screen. It's a great resource for folks. You maybe you've seen it before, but Paul Jeremy maintains this website, and it is basically it's an interactive site. If you scroll over, you can even click on it; it'll take you to the website. But it helps you kind of break down all of the areas of cyber on the top, so you can narrow it down because you don't have to get all these certs, right? But use the top line to figure out what niche of cyber you might be most interested in. And on the left side, you got expert, intermediate, and beginner. So I tell folks, yeah, get about 3 certifications, start as a beginner, get intermediate, get expert. I do see a question mark in the thing. Are there any specific tools across CISA DH that should have, especially entry level? So this one right here, but this isn't CISA endorsed or sponsored, but you bring up a good point. So if you are pivoting in new, I am going to share something that is a CISA endorsed site as a good resource for you. Now that I'm getting a little bit more proficient at sharing my screen. So this is what the CISA created. It's called the Cyber Career Pathways tool. So this is an interactive page. Let me drop the link in the chat. So yeah, this, okay. Yep, all right. So yeah, this page is interactive. So if you come here, you can basically help drill down on an area of cyber you might be interested in, right? So let's say, you just want cybersecurity proper, not so much IT, right? So you click on that, right? And down here below that, these various roles pop up, right? So you can start to drill down more on something you might be interested in. Cyber defense, for instance. So maybe you're interested in forensics, right? So click on the forensics role. You can say, do not show this again. It'll always show up again. I don't know why that is. And then from there, you can see other roles that might tie into that, right? That might have a bridge. But what's really cool is in this middle section, you have all these little bars, right? You can click through these, and essentially you're able to see the types of experiences that this role would expect, or you might even see on the job description. So in a sense, you're able to kind of pre-screen like what a job announcement for this type of role would, so you can start tailoring your resume ahead of time. But also start working towards, if you have a knowledge gap or an experience gap, you can start trying to close that up for that role. Common relationships, again, yeah, you can see the various roles that and how they apply, that kind of thing. Federal data, yeah, same thing. The series, the federal job series that typically relate most to that role. So if you're looking for a forensics job, digital forensics job, you would primarily see that under the title of the 2210 series, which is information technology or infosec or something like that. Your years of experience on the new pathways, site specific cybersecurity, or what experience as an IT project manager apply? The years of experience on the new pathways. Are you referring to the CTMS DHS cybersecurity service that I was talking about? Okay, so yes, you have to read the job description. I've seen some quasi IT related roles. They're mostly going to be cyber, right? But prior IT experience very well may play into that. It's each job's very specific to what they're looking for. So just like USA Jobs, really too, the important thing is to make sure you read that job description and ensure exactly what that role is looking for. Because case in point, like this 2210, like right here, right? Especially on USA Jobs, if you go to USA Jobs and you do a search for that series, it runs the full gamut of cyber. And a lot of times it'll just say like IT infosec or something like that. And it's not until you get into the job description that you see, oh, this is IT infosec for forensics. Oh, this is IT infosec for penetration testing. Like all, the role titles can be very broad. It is imperative to make sure you read the job description. So, and the same thing goes for the not just USA Jobs, but the DHS cybersecurity service as well. So I do believe that is my time. Happy to connect with anyone and everyone on LinkedIn. Please feel free to shoot me over a connection request. If you got any questions, go ahead and message me. If you're interested in that one job that I'm recruiting for, like I said, that the post has the instructions on where to send your resume to and all that good stuff. So with that, I appreciate y'all. Hopefully, like I said, you learned something. Hopefully I wasn't I wasted anybody's time. I hope everybody has a great weekend. And I don't know if Tom's coming in to close me out or anything like that, but if he doesn't, I'll stay on for a little bit. I'm going to turn my camera off, but I'm happy to chat or answer any questions or anything like that. So y'all have a great weekend, and hopefully hear from you all soon.